Good morning. How's everybody doing? Let me get a little situated. No. All right. So, how are y'all this morning? Good? I'm just going to pray just because I need to be able to calm myself down a little bit, and I figure if I just pray, then, that just starts everything off better, right? Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you for the opportunity that you have given me today to talk with my friends. God, I'm thankful for each and every person that is here, and I know that this is something that you've been working with me on, God, but I pray that this is something that somebody else here in this room is going to hear, receive, claim it, own it, and walk in it, God. I pray for your presence to just be known here in this place today as we talk. And God, we love you, we honor you, and we praise your name when we say amen. See, I'm already a little bit better. I just want to tell you guys, lately, I don't know if y'all have noticed on Facebook that everybody's doing the 30 days of thankfulness. And that is such a really cool deal. I'm going to have to remember, these side areas, so sorry. Anyway, so 30 days of thankfulness, and it's really cool. What I notice is, in the beginning, everybody on those first few days, first week is really great. And, people are thankful for God and their family, and, it's all these things that I'm like, that is so cool. And then by week 3 and 4, my friends start getting really creative for the things that they're thankful for. And I love it because that's kind of how I operate. And so that's really what I want to talk to everybody about today, is being thankful regardless of our circumstance. It is something that I've talked about before, but it is something that is so true to my heart because it's just kind of this thing that I try to raise my kids with. So my verse for you guys today is 1 Thessalonians 5. I don't know what exact verse, but if you read through there, you'll find it. It says, "Rejoice always, pray without ceasing, give thanks in all circumstances." And that is just kind of a verse that we live by at our house. So, my story, for those of you who don't know, I feel like sometimes I tell this part too much, but I guess there's some people who might not know it, and so I just try to kind of share it with you quickly. My story is that in February of 2012, my husband passed away, and through this journey of becoming a widow and a single mom, God continues to show up on a regular basis. God continues to show who he is. He continues to love me. He continues to teach me. He continues to provide for me. And through that, I'm able to make a choice of what I want to teach my children. And so while I share it with you guys and I share this stuff with you, really it's for my kids. See, Chris was the pastor, one of the pastors here, and things were moving and life was just kind of going in a completely different way than I'd ever expected. When Chris and I got together, we were really young. I was 16, so high school sweethearts, love at first sight, only we dealt with life, and it was really hard. We did the regular things that the world said you do. We drank, we partied, we just really had what we thought was a whole lot of fun. Until those things started to take over our life. They stopped being fun at some point. They started being a necessity at some point. And then they started to wreck our lives. So into our marriage, after we had our kid, that's when we really noticed we had a problem with addiction. Addiction consumed us, our marriage, our lives. We had everything, and then we lost everything, all because of an addiction. It wasn't one-sided. It wasn't just his fault. I played just as much a part in all of that as he did, but needless to say, we found ourselves just at the very bottom. And then God does what he does, and he takes over. He completely transformed my life, and with that, he transformed my husband's life. And so while I married this young kid who liked to party and have a good time, the man who, when he passed away, that was a pastor, God transformed his heart, and he changed him. So my husband, the partier, became this crazy guy who was passionate in a pursuit of the one who changed him. And he was so set on not just keeping that all to himself, but he had this burning desire that he had to share it with all of his friends. He needed everybody that was around him to know exactly what it was that he had experienced, because he could not keep it bottled up inside. And so you see, our life, felt like it was just completely different. We're living in a totally different way than when we entered into our marriage, when we started our lives together. It was totally different. And so it was amazing. I was excited to see what God had done in our relationship. I was excited to see what was dead come to life. I was excited to see what everybody else said was hopeless to become totally restored. And I was even more excited that I was on the journey with my best friend. I was excited that we were now, instead of just hanging out, we were going to just be telling everybody about what had happened in our lives, and that nothing is hopeless, and that everything is possible when you hand it over to God. So then, needless to say, when February of 2012 happened, my world shattered. Everything that I had built the foundation of my life on from that point on, when God transformed us, was now on shaky ground. So I had to ask myself, when I stared down at my two little kids, when I had to tell them the most awful news that I thought a mother should ever have to say to two young kids, I had a choice in that moment. I could become bitter, and I could become angry, and I could decide that I didn't want any part of that God business. Because we had prayed, we had begged, and we had asked, and he did not show up the way that I thought he should show up. So as I sat there staring at these two faces, I really just kind of asked myself, what would Chris tell me to do? And so it was in that moment that I decided I was going to continue on the path. I was going to continue following the passion that God had put into my heart. And it's to share everything that I can about what's happening through my daily struggles with everybody else. You see, even though I made that decision that I was going to passionately pursue, it sure doesn't make it easy on a daily basis. I'm raising two young kids by myself, but the shenanigans that they pull on a regular basis kind of keep it fun. So that's my story, for those of you who maybe didn't know it before, all in a real small nutshell. You see, that's the thing. There's all these details along the way, and I've just recently realized a lot of times people hear my story and they're like, wow, she prayed and he became restored and everything was different. The addiction just walked away and left him. It wasn't like that. And so I'm sorry if I've ever misrepresented that part of the story to you. Our journey was years. It was a lot of days of emptying myself with tears. It was a lot of days of throwing in the towel and saying, I'm done, I can't do this anymore. And so over the years that it took, it was a game. It wasn't a game, but it was a here and a there and a here and a there, until all of a sudden one day God said, that's it. I need you to know that you're mine. I need you to know that I have a purpose for you that is far bigger than what it is you've been doing. And so we went through that transformation, and so when life was different, even through the hard times, it was easy to stay faithful to the one who I had seen transform it all. So as I talk to you today, please know that. Please know that I never think that what you're going through is easy, and that one day is good and one day is bad, and that there aren't the struggles once you've made that decision. All along this journey, it's a growth. All along the journey, he's there waiting beside us, loving us, going through things with us, providing for us, giving us his grace on a continuous basis. So as the fall has moved in, I've kind of struggled. And I don't know what it is about the change of the season. Maybe it's that Chris's birthday is the 1st of November. And so I can feel the anxiety of that day coming. You know, the leaves, they start to die. Things start changing. There's different smells in the air. Fall just smells different. And so I'm conflicted. Because as hard as it is to go through this change of the season, my heart loves it. My heart loves the idea that the holidays are quickly approaching. There's memories to be made with my children. There's traditions that I try to keep going. There's fun and laughter, and it all just feels different, and I'm excited for it. And all the while that I'm excited, there's still something in the back of my heart that says, this still hurts. Because while the holidays are approaching and everybody's excited about these memories that are going to be made, there's still a very important person who does not get to be present to make those memories with us. And so it's hard. So we're all here and we're all going through things. And maybe that's why I love the 30 days of thankfulness because it's a reminder for myself to be thankful. So just like in 1 Thessalonians, it says, give thanks in all circumstance. And so in February of 2012, that was my decision. I decided that regardless of how hard this was, I was going to choose to raise my children to be thankful. I knew that meant that was going to be hard because they're little. They don't fully understand what I'm trying to teach them. But I thought at that time, as I was praying and begging God to take the pain that had just occurred, I thought, if I can teach them that God created them to be overcomers at this age, then by the time they become adults, all of the ups and downs that they've experienced will never shake their foundation of who created them and the purpose that was given to them in their lives. So while that's my story and that's my challenge, we're all sitting in here with struggles and we're all sitting in here with problems. Some of us are actually sitting in here with excitement because life is up right now. Life is good. Maybe you're celebrating a new baby, and so this year is going to be the first holidays with your new baby. And maybe you're celebrating a first marriage. This is going to be your first holiday as a new family. And maybe it's exciting because you're working on a blended family. And then on the other hand, maybe it's a blended family. How do you look at that? Maybe you're sitting here and you're going through hardships in your relationship with your spouse. Finances are tight, so the holiday season coming might be anxious. And how am I going to provide? How am I going to do this? We're already living from paycheck to paycheck. I have no idea how I will provide. And so maybe that's where you're at. Maybe you're drowning in your finances and you can't see where the provision is coming from moment by moment. I get it. Those are the things that I'm talking about. I'm saying that I know what it feels like to say, God, I'm following you with everything that I have, and then you get a notice from the bank and it says you are $250 negative. Well, God, I said I was going to follow you. Where are you? Didn't you hear me? Like I said I would do what you wanted me to do. The thing is, he does. He hears you the whole time. It just doesn't mean that it makes it any easier. It doesn't mean that the things of this world don't still try to pursue you. You see, we live in a fallen world. It was a choice that Adam and Eve made for us. And so because of their choices, then we live in a certain way. So regardless of the fact that I decide to follow God, there are still going to be things that happen. Just right now, the whole single mom thing is hitting me really hard, not just because of the holidays, but I like to look at it in a positive way. You see, I'm such a good mom, and I'm so cool, and my day is filled with such amazing things of laundry, dishes, homework, cleaning, working, dealing with other bills, and all of that fun stuff, that it is so exciting. My 5-year-old son cannot stand the thought of being away from me. To the point that when I drop him off at school, I can no longer drop off in my PJs or my comfortable clothes with my hair on the top bun because I'm going to need to get out of the car. Because my son has decided that when the teacher comes to the car, he's going to climb over the front seat into the floorboard. And then she doesn't know whether to yank him out or not, and I don't know whether to just be like, get him out! So I pull around to the front, all the while never losing my cool, because I'm a cool mom. And so I'm like, honey, we've got to go to school. All the while in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, what is happening in this moment? And what are the parents behind me that are honking at me thinking? Because no child ever got out of this car after she sat in this line for a long time. So you see, I'm such a great mom that this kid doesn't want to leave me until he gets home with me in the afternoon, and then he doesn't want to hang out with me or sit on my lap or hug me or hold me or do anything like that. So you see, regardless of the choice that I made how to raise them, I'm still facing obstacles as I do it. But I have a choice on this journey, and I can look at it and I can be excited that I get to raise these two children that God has a plan for. Or I can become angry and upset and hurt and hardened in my heart for what it is that I go through. But we all go through things. We all have things happening in our lives. What I want to tell you guys is that we have a choice in the way that we handle them. We have a choice in what we do with what comes our way. And you see, the whole thing is that when I decided that God was going to be the one that I follow regardless of anything that came my way, I was given a power. And through that power, I decide what I follow. I decide how I follow him. And so that is why I choose to say, all right, God, today is hard, and I've left my son screaming, crying, yelling out my name to where I just wanted to scoop him up and run with him and tell him we are never doing this school thing ever again. But I had a moment of reason, and I left there bravely sending him in with the school counselor who was amazing, leaving him there crying my whole way to work. Sobbing hysterically, probably should have pulled over, but I just needed to get to a place that I could hear truth. I needed to get to a place where I could just have somebody pray over me into my circumstance, because that is where the power is. That is where the change would happen. I could wallow in it all day long and be so sad that I felt like I abandoned him after he's already dealt with abandonment issues that were out of our control. Or I could flip it around and say, all right, God, you brought us here. You know exactly what it is that we need. And so I give you all power, all authority to work inside of my life the way that only you know how to do. And that's what we did. So that day we prayed all day, like in Thessalonians, pray without ceasing. It was everybody that I could call that day to be like, start praying. I don't know what's going on, but just pray. And I had floods of phone calls that day from my friends saying, I've got you. I'm praying for you. I'm lifting you up. You can do this. So there's a choice in your circumstance how you're going to deal with it. I've surrounded myself with friends who constantly remind me that there is life to be lived regardless of my circumstance. And I'm thankful for each and every one of you that on a regular basis reminds me that life is still good regardless of my circumstance. That's exactly what it says in 1 Thessalonians. You give him thanks, you give him praise for where you're at, who you are. You see, you sitting here wouldn't know your strengths had you not gone through your trials. You would not know his provision had you not go through your struggles. You would not get to know his mercy and his grace and his unending love had you not needed the Savior to step into your circumstance and change the way that you see it. You see, you have a choice in everything that you are doing, everything that you are going through. You have the choice to look at it and say, God, this is your moment. This is your time to shine, because everything that you are going through has a ripple effect. And there's going to be someone else who sees how you deal with what it is that you're going through. And that ripple effect is going to touch somebody and help them through a circumstance that may have nothing to do with your circumstance. And that's my prayer for my children. You see, I do things, some days it's hard. And sometimes I have to be honest. With my kids, it's a fake it till I make it. I didn't let Gavin know that day that I was hysterically wanting to just cry and scoop him up and take him home. No, I was a strong mom who said, this is what is best for you. This is where you need to be. And through that, he knows the next time he can't cry louder, harder, longer to get his way. He knows my mom is going to choose what is best for me, just like my Father in heaven chooses what is best for me when I hand him everything that I have, when I give him all that I have and say, you use your power to do what you need to do in this situation. And just like in February of 2012 when I prayed, it doesn't always mean that it's going to be the answer that I want it to be. You see, he knows far greater what I need and what the others around me needs. And so sometimes when I pray and I call out to him and I beg him for him to show up in a situation, he shows up all right. He never leaves me. He never forsakes me, and he never just abandons me. No, he shows up in a way that sometimes I could never imagine. I have to look at my notes because I don't know where I'm at now. Sorry. So I tell you that we have to bring it to him daily. And you ask, what does that mean? And I have this really cool verse if it's going to show up on my phone, because in my Bible, I didn't really understand it. So what does it look like when you have to do this daily? Because honestly, I'm struggling with some of the exact same things that I dealt with nearly 4 years ago. Right when I think, all right, God, we've got that one under control. No. He hits me again, sometimes with the same thing where I'm like, my gosh, I thought we already dealt with that. I thought we were good. And moving on. And so I have to take it to him again and say, all right, I thought I had dealt with this. But here I am, struggling with the same sadness, the same grief, the same anxiety. And I know that only you are the one with the power to completely change that. That light's really bright. So in Ephesians 6, I loved this version of it because it's from the Message and it relates it so well. God is strong and he wants you strong. Take everything the Master has set out for you, well-made weapons of the best materials, and put them to use so you will be able to stand up to everything the devil throws your way. I inserted the punk just because it sounds better. This is no afternoon athletic contest that we'll walk away from and forget about in a couple of hours. This is for keeps, a life or death fight to the finish against the punk. And here's the thing. You have to take it to him daily so that you can honor him with what you do with what he's put you through. You see, I decided to teach my kids, I needed to teach them in a tangible way how to do all of this that I just told you. And so they need to see visually, how do I give that to God? In the beginning that everything happened, and I know all of you here have heard this, you hear the phrase, let go and let God. And I used to get so frustrated because I'm like, what in the world does that even mean? I didn't get raised in church, and so I'm like, is that this religious terminology that everybody knows except for me? And so people would just say it, and it was meant to comfort me. And at the time, it just frustrated me. And so I needed to know, how do I know if I'm letting it go? How do I know if I'm giving it to God? Like, do you just say, all right, God, you got that? And then you move on? And then I realized, yeah, in some things, it really can be that easy. There are some things that I can be like, God, I can't deal with that anymore. And so in the car line, whenever I'm wanting to yell at everybody, you're going to have to help me with that. And he does. Then there's the bigger things. And that's where I realized I had to visualize what I was doing. And that is where worship steps into my life. Just this morning, as I was so nervous to come up here and say anything, to share any of the things that God has revealed to me, I was so nervous. I kid you not, every song that Chris loved came on in a row. It started with Hosanna. And I was like, all right, that's good. Okay. We can do this. And then some of his Matt Redman songs came on in a row. And then I hear my kids singing at the top of their lungs to these songs that they knew from their dad playing them over and over. And I said, see, I don't have a choice. It's what I do that raises them up. And so it is through worship. When you are overwhelmed, when you are consumed by the problems that you are experiencing, it's turning your focus off of your problem so that you can change your perspective. Sometimes that means all you have to do is turn on a song. Let the song speak to your heart. Sometimes it means getting down on the floor and begging him through worship. But it all is centered around worship. So when you enter into worship, when we enter in here, when we enter at home, when his favorite songs kept coming on over and over, I just stopped. I closed my eyes and I visually took what was becoming so heavy for me to carry to the footstool of the one who has given me purpose, the one who has created me, the one who has given me life. You see, if we take everything to the one who is life, then the one thing that he's going to give me back is life. And I refuse to just walk in the idea that, oh, this is just how it's going to be. I visually saw myself putting this grief, putting this anxiety, putting these nerves at the footstool, and I just waited. And yeah, the tears, they came, and I'm okay with that. I'm a big crybaby, and I'm okay with that because there is healing in those tears. If you're holding them in and you don't know what to do with them, you just let them go. They're there for a reason. They're there to connect you to that feeling so that you can deal with it and move on from it. And so you sit there at the footstool just waiting. And sometimes you're going to be shocked because he has a word for you. He has a truth that is just for you. He has something that he needs to share with you, but you've got to get into that moment to worship him, to honor him, to love on him so that he can in turn love on you. And so I sat there for a while until I felt that little, Mom, I'm hungry. And then I was back to reality, but I had picked up my decision that today we're going to walk in the power of who has created us, in the one who has given us life. Let me flip over here because I have another verse for you guys. Oh, in Philippians 4:4, it says, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, that is through your worship that you will see him. It is through rejoicing him and praising him that you will know his name and that he gets to know you. That's the whole idea of this. You see, God isn't just somebody that is there. He is a relationship waiting to be entered in with you. He's there wanting to know you just as well as you know him, and you to know him the way that he created you to be. You see, he wants you to see yourself the way that he sees you all along. And it's a choice that you get to make. And so I tell you guys all of this with the idea of being thankful. I get it, that it is hard to sometimes find one thing to be thankful for when you are so overwhelmed with life, hardships, hurt, heartaches. Sometimes those become so much that they feel like they are crushing you. But that is not the burden that he has given you to carry. And so what I want to encourage you guys to do is it's being thankful. But maybe not just in 30 days of thankfulness. Maybe it's taking on thankfulness as your life attitude. Maybe it's taking on that thankfulness and doing something different. When my kids start complaining and they start fussing and that's all that I hear, we start a game. And it's because I need them to see that regardless of what they do, there is always something to be thankful for. And so whenever they complain with one thing, like they're bored, they don't have anything to play with, there's nothing on the TV, just something simple. Well, now you're going to need to follow that up with two things that you're thankful for. Because I need them to learn that we've got to shift our perspective from our problem and turn it into our praise. Because when we're more focused on our praise, We don't have time to feel burdened and weighed down by what the world is trying to crush us with. You see, when I focus on my perspective on a praise and a love and a goodness and a kindness that all comes from above, I can't stay focused on the hurt and the sadness. And so my kids know that when they're about to start complaining about something and they're tattletaling on somebody, that they're going to have to say something really nice about the other person. And that's sometimes hard, but sometimes it can be fun. And so I want to encourage you guys today, as you're trying to figure all of this stuff out. I know that in the beginning when I started talking, you had a burden that came to your mind, a heartache, something that you're struggling with. I just want to ask you to just pray, praise, and rejoice who He is. Rejoice what He is doing in your life. And if right now you honestly can't come up with one single thing that is going well, I promise if you'll just look back, there was something, and that's the start. Sometimes it takes one thought to move forward. It takes one step to move you out into praying and praising Him. If you are at a place that things are great and things are exciting, life is just awesome. I am so excited for you. And in this moment, in this season that is happening, I just want to encourage you to praise Him. Don't forget to thank Him what He's doing. Don't forget to tell Him how much you love Him and that you are thankful for everything that is going on right now. And so if you guys will, just stand up so that we can pray. Thank you guys so much for coming here today.